we were young. When you start off, you don't want all the knowledge of all the problems. If you've got the knowledge of all the problems you've got to go through, and you have to go through. But if you're young, you meet them one at a time, and maybe you fail, but you're young. And every failure is a lesson. It's just get up and go again.
Even throughout your whole story, which is a fascinating story, I mean, and through your book, it's clearly a story about perseverance. It's about pivoting. It's about luck. But I think the most underlying theme is the perseverance, because you could have luck and not make it long enough to get lucky. Is that something that you see rare nowadays? Do you think people either quit too early or think it's going to come too easily? And there's a lack of perseverance amongst entrepreneurs right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, people ask, did you, would you change things? Did you get out too early? And I don't know. I think when you get to a certain size, and an entrepreneur has to be young. We were young. When you start off, you're young, because you don't want all the knowledge of all the problems. If you've got the knowledge of all the problems you've got to go through, and you have to go through. But if you're young, you meet them one at a time, and maybe you fail, but you're young. And every failure is a lesson. It's just get up and go again. Get up, because.
But I feel like that's easier said than done. Most people don't get back up.
Well, an entrepreneur does. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about just keeping going. We're in a bit of a mission here in the UK now. Now that Brexit's over, or we've had Brexit, and we've also had COVID. Now the message is just keep going. This is tough. But I think if people think it's tough, it's like, when things get tough get going. Well, we've got, when things get tough, just keep going. And this is our message that we're putting out now. We're doing this now that we have these wonderful mediums. And okay, back in the 1950s and 60s, we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have computers. That's impossible. I could talk to you now in Montreal, and this is fantastic. A couple of days ago, I was talking to somebody in Boston, and also yesterday, a guy in Dubai. And this, so you can do a lot. And the important thing also is people. You don't give up. You look at somebody else and you say, "Come on, we can do it." There's got to be more of we in this than I'm fed up. I'm tired. No, it is. You're either a person who will get up, and I think if there's an entrepreneur there who really is looking at life, he looks at the glass is half full, not half empty. He looks at, so that's a problem. So what do we do? That defines. It defines an entrepreneur. The other word for an entrepreneur is risk taker. Yeah, because it wouldn't be. He's a risk taker, and this is why people can't advise you on risk. Risk is something that you got to have the guts in there. And okay, not everybody wins, but it's like another thing that for me, it was that the race isn't over until you won. Yeah. You just keep going. And there's lots of things, part races, there's lots of things that come in the way, but you just keep going.
So I'm wondering something, right? You coming in as a small fish and seeing Adidas as one of the heads there, and you and your brother start this company. You're looking Reebok starting off. You're looking high up, and you're seeing Adidas all the way up there. To then get acquired, to see Reebok get acquired by Adidas. What's the emotion? What's the feeling behind all that? Seeing like the company you looked at as, man, these are the ones to beat, to acquire your baby. I hate saying baby about a business. I personally don't believe that, but to see your business that you started from the ground up, the legwork that you put into be acquired by Adidas. What were your thoughts? Like, what was going through your mind?
Well, the important thing for me is that when I released and got Paul Finan, I got the right man. He did the job. He was hungry. He needed it. And so he worked at it. When I first went over to America to think, right, Boston Camping. Now, they're going to be our distributors. And I went over, and Paul picked me up at the airport. And I go to his office, and I say, no, where's Steve? Where's Terry? What's Boston Camping was gone. They just finished it. And Paul concentrated fully on Reebok. And, it's like saying, okay, good. We've got your attention. And he needed to make that work. And he did. Put a lot into that. What happened is that Paul didn't find another Paul Feynman. He didn't find a man who could take, I found a man, I was right down here, then found the man who could take it forward from here, Paul Feynman. But he didn't find the man who could actually take it on from there. And, you've got to find it and say, well, that's bad luck, or it's whatever. He couldn't find a man. And so he settled on, with the shareholders at that point, on selling to Adidas. And the story is that it was like that Reebok and Adidas together, they would challenge Nike, because Nike were growing a lot better then. And whatever was agreed between Paul Feynman and that Herbert Heiner, who was in charge of Adidas, whatever was agreed or the story that was put out never happened. All that happened is that Adidas, they wanted momentum. Now, and you cannot blame Adidas if you've spent $4 billion nearly. If you spend $4 billion, you have every right to do what you like with the company. And I hate that. But, we live in a real world. And all that Adidas did were they took a lot of the assets, put them over into Adidas, and that gave them the momentum they needed to grow in America. So, not good for me, but I no longer had anything to do with the company. It was okay. Like you say, it's something I grew with my brother from nothing. Unfortunately, my brother never saw the growth. He died just as we got that distribution agreement with Paul Feynman in America to distribute it. Unfortunately, he got stomach cancer and died from that, which was a shame. But right now, Adidas is selling the company. And I've talked to one or two people who are very interested. So, it's like, okay, that's been a step. Yeah, can they grow again? Can it become, they asked me if I was to come into the company, what would I want? What would I want to happen? And I said, well, first thing you need to do is to redevelop, regrow the American market, because that's absolutely key. I said, but you must have your ambition on being number one. Even though that's right now, Nike are 20, 25 billion. Reebok are down at 1.5, 2 billion. It's a big job. If you don't think big enough, you won't get anywhere. You've got to think big enough and then start taking the steps. And I think if the right people buy it.
I love that. Were you, just out of curiosity, when you were at the prime of Reebok, were you friends with like Phil Knight? Did you guys speak? Did you speak to the CEOs of or the founders of other companies? Was there does that go on, or is it competition? I don't speak to them. I'm here to crush them.
Well, I wouldn't mind talking to Phil Knight, but I'm in the UK. He's sort of the far side of America. He's a long way away. Where would you meet? You'd meet at the NSGA show, certainly. And I did meet Jeff Johnson. I don't know if you know Jeff Johnson. Jeff Johnson more or less was Nike. I know Phil Knight was the owner, but Jeff Johnson came up with the name, came up with the swoosh. He was the thinking man. And I had a good long conversation with Jeff Johnson. Nice guy. And, if I met him today, we'd just carry on and have a conversation. For me, it's having a conversation. It's not cutthroat. For me, the job is to make a product and make it good. Make it the best if you can do. And I know there's a lot of talk about, being enemies, that Phil Nye was upset at the fact that Reebok became number one. Well, maybe he was, but he was probably upset with himself and upset with his team more than he was upset at Reebok. You know, I don't care. You can have plans. And when you do get big, keeping your team well focused is difficult. Keeping them on focus, because, you know, it's so big. I mean, you're talking thousands of people. So you have to have that nicely pocketed so that there are people really, you know, always sort of telling people how good we are and what we're doing, and, you know, letting them make decisions. You're going to get a lot of people and making decisions to help you grow.